Ukrainian forces have broken through the northern flank of the Russian defense of Lyman and are continuing their drive east towards the Zarabets River. This northern thrust poses a serious threat not only to the forces in Lyman, but also to the Luhansk Oblast, as the Ukrainian forces might seek to cross the Zarabets River, link up with their forces in the south of Dubrova, and after consolidating and destroying the Lyman pocket, they will be in a position to make a drive east towards Lysychansk and Severodonetsk. Now, this is an extremely optimistic view of the coming battle. The Russians are attempting to shift reinforcements into the area to stop the Ukrainian advance, and a more likely scenario could play out like this. As the Ukrainian forces continue advancing north and south of Lyman, the Russians could decide to retreat from Lyman and withdraw east of the Zarabets River to set up a new defensive line. Whether we see an encirclement of Lyman or a Russian retreat, the Ukrainians have a real shot at capturing Lyman, but we won't know for a few days. So let's shift to another topic of speculation, the apparent sabotage of the Nord Stream pipelines. On September 26th and 27th, it became known that the Nord Stream pipelines were experiencing leaks. Swedish authorities detected powerful underwater explosions around the same time the leaks were reported, and it was later determined that these leaks were most likely caused by deliberate sabotage. Now, before we start pointing fingers, let's analyze which country would have the most to gain from the destruction of these pipelines. The Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 pipelines supply natural gas from Russia to Germany via the Baltic Sea. When Russia launched their invasion of Ukraine earlier this year, Germany decided to stop the Nord Stream 2 pipeline from going into operation. This left only the Nord Stream 1 pipeline as a direct link from Russia to Germany. And the Russians have been regularly shutting down this pipeline over the past few months as energy prices rise across the continent, and they sought to use this as leverage against the Europeans to gain the upper hand in the ongoing economic war between Russia and the West. Germany could be in real need of natural gas this winter if they run out of their stockpiles, so it wouldn't make much sense for them to sabotage this pipeline. And the same would go for the Russians. They have been using and are planning to use these pipelines as leverage against the Germans, so it seems equally unlikely that they would be behind these attacks. The last country to have the means, the motivation, and the reckless attitude towards committing such an act is the United States. The sites of the explosions were in the exclusive economic zones of Denmark and Sweden, which are in close proximity to NATO forces and to the US Navy. We should also note that the United States has been against the construction of these pipelines since the very beginning, maintaining that these pipelines would result in the Germans becoming more dependent on the Russians for their energy needs, compromising the American strategic goals in Europe. Both the United States and Russia have denied responsibility for these acts of sabotage. If it were to come to light that either of these countries were behind these attacks, it could escalate the conflict further and spiral out of control. I could sit here all day and speculate what that might look like, but until we have more concrete proof and more evidence, I'm gonna leave it at that.